Across the wide expanse of the old world and along the endless path of time, there have been great warriors, heroes and lords capable of changing the strings of the world's history. Magnificent beings who strike fear into the hearts of their enemies through their cunning tricks, their vile concoctions, and their martial skill. But for many, the arena of combat will always be dominated by the art of pure melee combat. Today, we will speak of great deeds and magnificent characters, legends that have carved their own destiny through the art of fighting. Before we begin, we want to thank all the latest Patreons and YouTube channel members that have joined our ranks and helped the channel over the last few weeks. We thank you for watching and supporting the channel. In this episode, we will name some of the best melee fighters there are in Warhammer Fantasy. This is a continuation of our previous list that named the first 8 characters. Today, we name another 7 that didn't make it into the first list, but by all means correspond in the category of mightiest melee fighters in the entire setting. If you want to have your own Legendary Lord title without having to beat anyone in close combat, you will be more than happy to hear about today's video sponsor, Established Titles. Established Titles lets you buy from 1 to 10 square feet of land in Edelston, Scotland. All the available title packs are based on the historic Scottish land ownership custom, where you can declare yourself as a lord or lady, which are the Scottish terms for landowner. You could officially change your name to Lord or Lady and get it on your credit card, plane tickets, or else. You can even get it on your dating profiles. Not only that, but by purchasing your own plot of land, Established Titles plants a tree with every order through partnerships with One Tree Planted and Trees for the Future charities. Your certificate features a unique plot number with which you can see the exact location of your land. Established Titles has told us that the first 200 people purchasing a title pack using our link will effectively be next to our plot. Depending on how many of you want to become a lord or a lady, we can build our own Book of Choya Kingdom. Go to establishedtitles.com/Choya and simply use our code CHOYA to get 10% off on any purchase in the current early Black Friday sale, and support the channel by getting you or your loved ones a great, unique gift. Among the Umberigans, a child was born, a chief's son, destined for greatness, and the gods decreed that his name shall be Sigmar, the one whose coming was foretold by the signs of the gods. And this Sigmar, while yet a youth, withstood goblin and orc, while others fled, taking up his father's axe, defending his hearth and home. Fear not, mother, sister, be not afraid. This house is not for burning, nor this village, not while the hand of a man can hold the shaft of an axe. The coming of Sigmar had been heralded by the twin-tailed comet, an omen of utmost importance to the world. Sigmar Heldenhammer is one of the most important characters in the history of the world, as he was the one to find the drive to unite the 12 human tribes whose people founded the Empire of Man. Sigmar was the hero who put an end to the bloody tribal conflict that had driven his people apart, and showed them that humankind was stronger and better off united than divided. At a young age, Sigmar led a party of warriors against an orc warband under the command of a brutish and blunt black orc called Vagraz Headstomper, who led a raid against the Umbergen holdings. Aided by the then High King of the Dwarfs, King Kurgan Ironbeard, and with Galmaraz in hand, Sigmar drove the massive orc to a single knee before smashing his skull to so much pulp and shattered bone. This was the first of many important martial victories. At the closing of the battle, Kurgan Ironbeard, in an unprecedented act, gifted the mighty hammer Galmaraz to Sigmar, fortifying a growing legend and forging an unbreakable alliance between the Umbergen and the Dwarf Kingdom. This auspicious start was soon followed by his earning of his shield at the Battle of Astafen Bridge. During this battle, Sigmar's childhood friend and sword brother, Trinovantis, was laid low by the massive axe of war boss Grimgut Bonecrusher. Filled with rage at the death of his friend, Sigmar flew from his saddle and with a mighty swing brought Galmaraz down upon the war boss's skull and smashed it asunder. This was a vital step in Sigmar's journey, for that day he defeated an enemy force that outnumbered them and was mightier than any he had faced before. As Sigmar grew in age, wisdom and strength, so did his legend and exploits. It was not long before his father, King Bjarn, responding to the invasion of the hated Norscan tribes, was slain. Sigmar led a great war against the corrupted men of the north. While on his way to prosecute this war, he gathered to him the combined forces of several other tribes who were weak alone in the face of the worshippers of chaos. But united, they were an ever-growing army. As such, Sigmar and his men drove their enemies into the sea after a fierce battle. Then Sigmar declared that no Norscan that fled upon their wolf ships would be allowed to live, and so ordered archers to loose flaming arrows and catapults to rain death down upon the ships and the fleeing warriors. Corpses littered the shore, and Sigmar's victory was absolute. But perhaps Sigmar's most prominent achievement was when he founded the Empire, just after the massive Battle of Blackfire Pass. During this legendary clash, men and dwarfs fought together against their common foe, the Greenskins. Sigmar defeated the warlord of the massive Greenskin army, Urgluk Bloodfang, in close combat. Then all of the chiefs made an oath to stand together, united as the race of men. This was the beginning of the Empire as we know it. So numerous and legendary were Sigmar's accomplishments that in time he realized his dream and unified mankind into one great empire which could withstand any outside threat and thrive within its own borders. Although many would deem this one of, if not the greatest achievement of the age, Sigmar would then, in the 50th year of his reign, ascend to Ulric's side and join him in the great pantheon of gods. When the sun rests, and the world is dark, and the great fires are lit, and the ale is poured into flagons, then it is time to sing sagas as the dwarfs do. And the greatest saga is the saga of Sigmar, mightiest warrior. Hearken now, hear these words, and live in hope. 2,500 years before the birth of the barbarian of legend Sigmar, there was another, and some would say greater empire that grew in the sand dunes of the Southlands. Ah, Nehekara. 'Twas the peak of human advancement, the most powerful human civilization the world has ever known. Mankind was united under the rule of a single powerful man, known by many godly titles, such as Sethura the Imperishable, High King of Nehekara, Ruler of the Four Horizons, Lord of the Earth, the King of Kings, Monarch of the Sky, and many more. Sethura truly shines as one of the greatest rulers the world has ever known, and instead of living beings, he now marches to war with vast hosts of uncountable skeletons armed with deadly weapons, mighty chariots, and constructs of legendary proportions. Such a mighty feat is never accomplished without the shedding of blood, and Sethura shed an ocean of it, with a ferocity and cruelty seldom seen before. During his lifetime, Sethura became known for his heavy-handed, bloody, and tyrannical approach to ruling, but this was almost incomparable to the savagery that followed his reawakening. Long millennia after his death, and the actions of the hateful Nagash, and the curse that converted Nehekara into a massive graveyard, Sethura emerged from his tomb, filled with a terrifying fury and a bloody thirst for vengeance. In time, the King of Kings destroyed every rival he faced to prove himself once more as the undisputed ruler of the sands. With the blade of Petra, Sethura set its burning edge against all who oppose his rule or want to take from his lands. His weapon, the blessed blade of Petra, has been infused with the power of the sun god. Just to look upon it is to present such splendor that the eyes go blind after its brightness. The hot edge of the blade carries the heat of the desert sun, and uncountable are the ones that have fallen victim to the revered weapon. Heroes, kings, nobles, princes, shamans, war chiefs, many have fallen fighting the mighty Sethura, as he is not only a more than capable ruler and general, but one of the most powerful and experienced melee fighters in existence. The great and powerful Chaos Gods each have their mighty and immeasurable hordes of demons to do their will. Yet some are greater than others and have greater legends and strike more fear into the hearts of demons and mortals alike. One such greater demon is the colossal Scarbrand, the exalted bloodthirster, often known as the wrathful reaper, the drinker of blood, and, in his later days, the exiled one. Like all his kind, Scarbrand was imbued with a portion of the power of the blood god Khorne himself, making him a warrior of unparalleled violence, power, and sheer force of will. It was he who tore down the great gates of Slanesh's first palace and wreaked bloody ruin within. It was he who led the 8 hosts of murder against uncountable enemy forces and decimated them in an endless ocean of gore. Yet, for all his powers of war and battle, Scarbrand fell against his own flaw, and that would see him humbled beyond measure. Scarbrand was arrogant, subject to immense hubris and such rage that was actually palpable and painful to the body. These flaws were bolstered, nurtured and fanned by scenes to such extremes that the exalted bloodthirster attempted to battle his patron god himself, challenging his might by striking the blood god when he was facing the other way. A terrible mistake. For all his power and strength, Scarbrand could never overthrow the mighty Khorne, and for his transgression against his own master and creator, he was stripped of all his wits and personality. Left only with his great rage, Scarbrand would begin wandering the immortal and mortal realms alike, in search of skulls to heap upon the blood god's throne. In the time since the Lord of Skulls hurled the sinful demon from the highest parapet of the brass citadel and out of his presence forevermore, Scarbrand has done naught but wreak bloody havoc with an ever-growing devotion and intensity. So numerous are his victories before and after his exile that they are simply impossible to count, as they traverse time and space. Yet there are some few moments that stand apart in his long and storied history, such as when he was summoned by the foolish Skaven during the Battle of Karagangul. Falling to hold the line against the warriors of the Dwarf Hold, the Skaven Grey Seer, attempting to summon an avatar of the Horned Rat, accidentally summoned the great Scarbrand, whose unnatural demonic presence drove dwarfs and Skaven alike into a horrifying blood frenzy and began to fight and slaughter all about them. The carnage was only stopped when Master Engineer Clarak Bronzehammer set off demolition charges that sundered a colossal statue of Alea, burying the majority of the crazed horde.
I am the Spine Crusher, the Skull Taker, the Blood Quencher!
Known as the eldest and greatest of the Kroxagors, Nakai goes wherever the Great Plan deems it necessary. Whenever the lizard men are in dire need of help and raw strength, when catastrophe threatens their existence, the ancient Kroxagor appears to protect the mighty lizard men from harm. The race of lizard men is made up of a wide variety of subspecies, but few are as notable as the race of Kroxagors, and even few among their number have garnered such widespread legends as Nakai the Wanderer. Indeed, there are those who say that his legend began long ages ago, during the first spawnings of the city Tlansla, before the great catastrophe and the city's destruction. Thanks to his standing as a truly ancient member of his race, even believed to be the physical manifestation of powerful jungle spirits, it is said that his hide is thicker and stronger than any of the Kroxagor that have followed him, and he can sustain unmatched wounds that would lay low or even kill any other in his position. It is said that in the year 930 of the Imperial calendar, Nakai aided a lizardmen force trying to defend the Lustrian jungles against the shambling hordes of drowned pirates and sailors of Luther Harkin, the Pirate King. At the Battle of the Eclipse, thousands of cold-blooded lizard men fought against the undead in a heated conflict that would end up with devastating losses for Harkin and his minions, thus preventing his attempt at penetrating the Lustrian interior and forcing him to go back to the pirate coast. In the aftermath of important battles, such as this one, the skink priests adorned his massive, battle-scarred bodies with ceremonial tokens and golden ornaments. Over the millennia of victories, Nakai has become quite festooned with such golden tributes, and goes to war wielding them.
I have eaten many enemy foes. Killed slave things, yes.
Deep in the breeding pits of Clan Moors, a batch of rats of abnormal size was pushed into the world. Huge and black-furred, these newly spawned young Skaven were sure to be true killers among their often fractious, violent and unstable clan. But these promising new rats would never grow to be great warriors of Clan Moors, for before they had even opened their eyes or finished growing out their fur, the largest of the brood, Queek, would devour his own siblings. This act would garner the attention of Warlord Nordwell, who saw unrivaled potential in the young Skaven, and took him in his personal tutelage. Being trained as Nordwell's protege, Queek was trained to be the ultimate warrior in the Under Empire, and glutted on the finest dwarf meat and man-flesh that could be provided. He was clad in the best armor available, and equipped with the greatest of weapons that could be procured. As he grew, Queek became even larger, to the point where his size, ferocity, and brutality would often be commented upon by other members of his clan, and even those without, for by the time he was only 4, the budding Skaven Lord had established himself beneath the World's Edge Mountains and across the Under Empire with a streak of many consecutive and decisive victories. Soon enough, Queek would further prove himself a formidable force by first launching a daring assault on the greenskins of Black Crag. It was through this campaign he would claim his signature weapon, Dwarf Gouger, a magical spike maul of legend forged in the time of the Goblin Wars. And in the pinnacle of the campaign, the Head Taker killed the big boss, Morgrim Blacktooth. Later, Queek would trick the warlord Icket Scratch and his traitors at Festa Spike, where Queek himself would lead the spearhead into the heart of the foe in a deadly setup that saw the rats of Festa Spike leave without time to properly respond. After the bloody melee was done, Queek would mount the fallen warlord's bones on his rapidly crowding trophy rack.
This is where beard things lurk. Enslave! Queek Master Owner!
With his legend growing, Queek Head Taker soon found himself being promoted by his mentor Nordwell and taking over the position of Warlord at the City of Pillars, in the dangerous tunnels and halls of Karak 8 Peaks. From here, Queek began a long and brutal war of attrition against the dwarf armies of King Belagar and the greenskin hordes of Warlord Skarsnik, a war that still goes on to this day. Abhorash is an extremely prominent fighter in the art of close combat. He is known as the Lord of Blood, the Scourge of the Greenskins, the Dragon Slayer, Abhorash the Great, and many other titles. His current location is unknown, but before leaving for good, Abhorash taught his disciples that single combat and honor in battle were the only true measures of greatness, and told them that only the impure feed upon the weak. Long millennia before Sigmar Heldenhammer was even born, when the now lands of the dead were still known as Nehekara, in the city of Lamia, where the vile scourge of vampirism first took hold, Queen Neferata ruled the city. After her discovery of the books of Nagash, and the subsequent creation of the corrupted elixir of immortality, which created the vampires, Neferata saw an opportunity to corrupt a man of pure intention and pure love for his queen and people, an extremely skilled swordsman and refined warrior, the captain of the queen's personal guard, Abhorash. She drew the noble man in with her supernatural allure, making false promises of love and devotion before enchanting his mind to bring him under her thrall. She forced upon him her foul blood, thick with the corruption of vampirism, which quickly flooded through Abhorash's veins. The corruption rapidly took hold, and soon Abhorash felt the burning thirst for drinking living blood that is the curse of all those who succumbed to the same vile form of immortality. Immortality that came with a heavy price. Though he thirsted, Abhorash's martial pride compelled him to resist the temptation, a defiance that brought the grotesque Neferata a great surge of amusement and, to a degree, joy. But for all his nobility and warrior's pride, Abhorash would soon break under the relentless pressure of the thirst, and in a single night of horror, he killed and feasted upon a dozen innocent subjects of the kingdom. Filling him with guilt and sorrow for lives he had taken, Abhorash vowed in that moment to never again feed upon the innocent, choosing to only devour vile criminals and the enemies of Lamia. Soon enough, doom came to Lamia when the priest kings and his armies came to destroy the cursed city and put an end to the legacy of Nagash once and for all. According to the ancient hieroglyphs that can still be found in the city, Abhorash himself fought valiantly and laid low enemies in their hundreds. But despite his best efforts to save his city and the people he loved so well, Lamia was eventually destroyed. In the aftermath, while his fellow vampires fled to Nagashizar, to the side of their ultimate progenitor Nagash, Abhorash himself chose exile with his most loyal disciples. Rather than pursue the goals of domination, the conquering of lands and people, or ultimate arcane power like others of his new breed, Abhorash himself committed to the pursuit of becoming the pinnacle of martial skill and the perfect warrior. His new quest would take him to many places where he slew a great many enemies, from the greatest of human tribal leaders to the largest orc warlords, feeding only on those enemies he deemed strong and worthy enough to be consumed. A sentiment he would bestow upon his disciples and pupils in his teaching, in the art of the sword. His legend grew over millennia. His skills only increased, and soon he was considered to be one of the greatest warriors across the old world, whose honor dictated that only melee combat and duels could bring glory. At the zenith of his quest, Abhorash scaled the mightiest peak of the World's Edge Mountains in a single day, and found the lair of a mighty red dragon at the top. The great vampire warrior delved into the lair and did battle with the colossal beast. The dragon's flames did not burn his pale skin, and though its lethal talons tore and rent his shield and armor, they could not slash at his flesh. All the while, Abhorash's skillful blade slashed and sliced and gored the great dragon's hide, until Abhorash raised his sword a final time and split the beast's chest open after a duel that lasted the entire night. As the dragon died, Abhorash plunged his head into the beast's chest, and began to lap greedily at the rich, powerful vitae that pumped lazily from the beast's heart. He hurled the desiccated carcass of the slain dragon from the fiery mountain top with a roar of triumph, for not only had he slain the greatest enemy he had ever faced, but thanks to the ancient power of the dragon's blood, he had at last freed himself from the ever-present thirst that had plagued him ever since the curse of unlife had been thrust upon him by the wicked Neferata. Among the beast herds of the tainted forests, there are murmured words that speak of an unnatural presence that brings naught but death and destruction to the race of beast men. The being that emerges from the swirling green mists that spin out from still lakes and rushing waterfalls in the beautiful natural lands of Bretonnia is known to the beast men only as Shabech, the Soul Killer. While the beast men might think of this being as the Soul Killer, to the purer and nobler folk of Bretonnia, he is known now as the Green Knight. Though such was not always the way, for long ages ago the Green Knight did not wear his armor the color of weather-beaten rocks and forest glades, and he rode under another name, Gilles Le Breton. In his mortal life, Gilles would become better known for founding the legendary kingdom of Bretonnia, the kingdom that would be named in his honor. But seldom are his mighty feats of martial prowess spoken of. In the year 952 of the imperial calendar, while being little more than a boy, Gilles slayed the great red worm Smergus. In that year, Gilles' proud tribe, the Bretoni, were plagued by the dragon, that seemed to love little else than reducing Baston to little more than fire and ashes in the pursuit of terror and death. Though the beast was the size of a great keep, the boy knew he had only one option if he was to spare the lives of his people and give them hope that his line of descendants and his lands might continue through the ages. So it was that in the summer, after spying a great plume of smoke rising from beyond the hill of the village of Senel, the young duke made a promise to his court that he would return draped in glory and victory, or else nailed into his casket. After donning his armor and setting out on his 20-hand charger, Gilles at last sat atop the hill from where he looked upon the flaming wreckage of Senel. The dragon, which now swooped overhead in colossal lazy sweeps, had herded the peasants of the village like little more than chattel into the center of a huge ring of fire that none could escape. Just before the vile worm could make the final, fatal pass, the brave young Gilles, veins pumping blood rich with heroism and courage, charged his noble steed through the wall of flame. The beast, seeing the young knight coming to challenge him, lighted down to kill him. The young duke, unafraid, charged the great beast. There was a deafening hiss as Smergus drew in a monumental breath with which to flame the young knight. Gilles knew that should he be caught in that fiery blast, his armor would run like water and his very bones would be reduced to naught but ash. He levelled his lance as the beast readied itself. The clash resulted in the knight slaying the terrible beast. Yet this was only to be the beginning of Gilles Le Breton's record of martial skill and great and enduring legend. After slaying Smergus, Gilles went on to perch the greenskin menace that had killed his father and threatened his homeland with darkness. Though having avenged his father, Gilles could not rest on his laurels. Instead, he began receiving visions that he must lend aid to his peers against the ever-encroaching enemies of humankind. On the morning of the first of many great battles, Gilles was visited at the shores of a mirror-sheened lake by a maiden of supernatural beauty and power. She infused Gilles and his companions with a newfound strength, emblazoned her likeness upon their banners, and bid them drink from a glorious golden chalice, that they might form the famous Grail Companions. From there they trapped the greenskins between their charge and the great ocean. Those who were not drowned were butchered. From there, Zeals united the land and created the Kingdom of Bretonnia, after emerging victorious from his 12 great battles, and was dubbed the Uniter. Now, despite his death, he would still go on to cover himself in glory as the legendary Green Knight.
On this channel, we are putting together narrative Total War cinematic battles and Warhammer lore videos. A special thank you goes to our Patreon supporters who help us in the making of more content. You can also join Patreon and earn extra perks while supporting the videos to come. Find the link in the description below. Make sure to subscribe, and thank you for watching. See you on the next one.